Hello, and welcome to Behind Numbers, the podcast where we uncover the real stories behind business leaders. What shaped them, which pivotal moments that they've shaped or changed their career path, and how they do think about those numbers that are really going to drive the change in their organization. I'm your host, Alessandro Cozzi, and today I'm joined with someone that truly embodies how to grow, how to adapt, and how to lead through transformation. Lamont Johnson is the head of finance at Google, where he has led global financial transformations, championed AI-driven efficiencies that saved the company over 500 million, and built high-performing teams that thrive through innovation. Lamont, welcome to Behind Numbers.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure to actually have you. And I've just shared a bit of your impressive background, but why don't we start with your story and what brought you where you are today?
Wow, it's really interesting question because it makes me want to start from the beginning. I was born and raised in Northern Virginia, it's the DC area, Alexandria, Virginia to be specific, where I spent my years all through high school. So it was really great upbringing, very diverse, environment that I grew up in. And that was a great experience. And so I went to college in Atlanta, Georgia at Morehouse College. I'm a very, very proud alumni of my school. I represent my school every single day, and it's done wonders for me in my career, actually, where I study finance. And so I've always had an affinity for numbers. And then when I found, the career path of how to turn those numbers into money, it really intrigued me. And so I studied it. I had an econ minor as well. And yes, what's interesting about my career path is my time at school. I was really groomed in valuation and, looking at companies and understanding how they make their money, and understanding margin, which would have led me probably to Wall Street, right? Investment banking, those kind of things. However, I had a job going into my senior year as a retail merchant, and I took that role coming out of college. So I worked for Macy's for quite a while. And what's interesting about merchandising is that it lended itself for me to have a comprehensive viewpoint of a business that I ran and owned, right? Depending on what area of retail I supported, it really allowed me to not only know the numbers, but then how to take a product all the way from the beginning of ideation all the way to the customer's hands. So it was such a great experience. And most folks don't understand merchandising has such a heavy financial component in it. But it was a great experience coming out of college. Then, the economy crashed. I worked for a lot of various companies, just trying to make ends meet, to be perfectly honest, Alessandro. And then I found myself at Coca-Cola in pricing management. And then from there, I worked for several different companies, including Fiserv, which was a credit card processing company. At the time, it was called First Data. And they were bought by, actually taken private, and then Fiserv merged with them and bought them out, actually, after I left. And then, interestingly enough, my wife, she got a job in Silicon Valley, and I essentially walked into my manager's office and told him I was leaving, because the opportunity was too great for her. And so, we up and left and from Atlanta to San Francisco, and we lived in the Bay for 7 years. I worked for McKesson Pharmaceuticals as a finance manager there, and then actually transitioned into Google, where I've been at the past 7 years. So it's been a really great, diverse, dynamic background that I have that I've just, mentioned in a few short sentences.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's an impressive background. And I was going to ask you, which were some of the major decisions that you had to actually do, or which were some of the major choices, but you have just said one of them. And one of those were, well, your actually wife had to actually take this job. It was too good to actually be true, so that you actually left your current role. So tell us more about how hard was it? Was it a hard
Yeah.
choice, and then were you scared about what's next? I mean, what am I gonna do there then?
Yeah, no, it was a difficult decision because um I was very used to living in Atlanta, didn't really see myself moving. Um, but I do consider myself a calculated risk taker, right? And
Mhm.
so um what really was important during that time, and we can talk about this at another point, but it's about the relationship building that you have with the folks that you work with, specifically like your manager or reporting structure. So when I did walk into my manager's office and told him the opportunity that we had in front of us, he actually allowed me to transition remotely for 4 months when he did not have to. And I think that he was just looking out for my well-being, the well-being of myself and my wife at the time. And it really allowed the decision to be a lot more seamless. Um, it allowed me to try to find a role while in San Francisco in a new place, and not have the fear of how to make ends meet at that time. So, really, you know, a lot of kudos to my manager at the time, and just it just lends itself to how you never know when you need to lean on someone for a decision like that. And it was abrupt and it was a disruptive type of decision. However, I work with my manager to make sure that it wasn't the case and set them up for success the same way that he set me up for success in my trying to find my next role.
Wow, wow, wow. So,
Yeah.
so that I'm just curious now here to actually know more about you and your manager. How
Yeah.
could you build that trust with your manager?
Um, Great question. I think that it starts with relatability, right? And it starts with transparency. So, I do find it a really good characteristic to have, to just get to know people on a personal level, right? We work with everybody. A lot of times you're with the people that you work with more than you are your own family. And so it's really important to learn the folks that you work with, what's going on in their personal life. And um, obviously the backdrop of work is important, but it's really good to just have personal relationships. And I established that with my manager at the time. Then secondly, transparency. Um, I learned early in my career, transparency is what earns people trust. When things are good, when they aren't good, you need to be able to convey both, um, outwardly, and make sure that you're not in the boat by yourself. Right. And so I think if I look back at that role, we were part of some really dynamic changes. I mean, there was a large rollout um, of a product launch at Fiserv that was really important to the company. The company was taken private for various reasons, and we really needed to reformat and rebrand the company, and there had a lot of financial implications in that. And so things weren't always great. And so I think that my manager was able to trust me with good and bad news, right? With not only us in finance, but also with our business partners, and really just be upfront. So I think that that transparent angle, which I had to learn the hard way early in my career, trying to get things done by myself and really just put myself on an island. I was told one day, never be on the boat by yourself. And so I like to pull along not only my coworkers, but also my managers as well, because we are a team typically. And if you're not and you feel like you're in a boat always by yourself, it's probably not the best situation for you and the best culture as well.
And you just mentioned a couple of things, and there is one that I would like to actually go back for a second, which is that you mentioned about your early days.
Mm,
So many times from the outside, we will actually see those leaders at big companies like Google, and we will actually think, oh, all their career, it must be amazing, fantastic,
mhm.
great, with no hiccups, with no problems, with nothing to actually be solved. But it seems that it was not like this, and you were actually talking
Absolutely
about
not.
your early days. Can you tell us
Yeah.
more there?
Yeah. I mean, look, the economy crashed in 2007 and I was right in the middle of it. Right. And so even my time at Macy's was cut short because of a consolidation that was happening. Everyone was trying to figure out ways to be efficient with costs. And so, they moved a lot of the corporate functions to New York and became more central and decided to stay in Atlanta. This happened to me 3 times when I was in Atlanta as far as pivoting within my career because of the decisions that companies made that affected me. So Macy's was one. I worked for a really small niche company that looked at accounts payables and tried to identify, duplicate payments with vendors, and it was a contingency-based business. That company was trying to, the company's called PRGX, and they actually were trying to build their commercial division, right? So I joined the team, thought things were going great. I mean, again, a great relationship with my manager, who I still speak to this day. But one day he walked into the office, he asked me to go outside, and he told me, Lamont, unfortunately, today I have to let you go.
Wow.
No warning. All right. The commercial business wasn't going as well as they had hoped, and they needed to make some drastic decisions, and I was affected by that. And so I tell people all the time, you never really know if you're doing a great job. That's what's expected, but sometimes the business and the macro environment makes decisions for you, and it's not always advantageous. So I've never been more shocked and disappointed and sad in my career ever than that day. I actually remember it very vividly. Right now, because I know he did not want to tell me that, but he was, reporting into a VP. He needed to make a hard decision. So, just that flexibility and that experience actually allowed me to be more prepared, whether I was looking for a role or in a role. So always be mindful of the macro environment and make sure that I'm ready, right? If there's a decision made on my behalf or I need to be proactive about something. And I tell people that to this day when I'm either mentoring or coworkers of mine when they ask me about my career.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. I mean, we have actually seen also during COVID how quick the
Yeah.
market can actually change, and
hmm
that you need to actually be flexible. You need to actually know what are the skill set that you could have not only right now, but which are the ones that are needed during the future. And talking a bit about skill set, and then talking also about, I think that you mentioned a couple of times, that was how important are relationships.
Yes.
So it is obvious that now everyone it is just talking about one thing, and that one thing is AI. Everyone it is
Yes.
talking about that. Based on what you mentioned, the relationship aspect and the people aspect, it is still there, and maybe it is gonna be still there also in the future, even if everyone it is so scared about what is gonna happen with AI. So I'm just wondering, where do you feel, or how do you think that relationships are gonna change based on everything that we have actually have seen in the last couple of years?
Great question. I think that relationships and the human to human relationship is going to be even more important as we go into this next AI generation. You can see, even though companies are adopting AI for efficiencies to make work faster, quicker, make decisions quicker, we're returning to work, right? We're in a hybrid environment. There's a premium being placed on being able to, walk over to your coworker's desk to try to solve a problem as opposed to hopping right on a video call. And you're seeing that across the board, and Google's no different, right? 3 days in the office, which is really interesting. You would think that with AI and it's just more virtual world that we would be okay with just kind of going the way that things were progressing post-COVID, but that's not the case. And even at the largest companies, and, there's a premium to return to work. And so I think that the relationship building and the human aspect, which is yet to really be determined, like how is all of this going to evolve? We have years probably to figure that out. But I can guarantee whether AI is doing the calculation or I'm doing the calculation, 10 years from now, I won't remember what that calculation is, but I remember who I worked with on a project to make those calculations actually come to life, right? AI can't do that. Or at least it can't yet, right? So,
Totally agree.
uh,
Totally
yeah.
agree. Totally agree. And I really do believe that, as you just mentioned, that in this era and where the AI it is going to do some of the work that we are actually doing, relationships are going to be even more important than what they were during our past. And yes, you're absolutely spot on. In 10 years from now, I'm going to remember about you and not about that Excel or that whatever it
Exactly.
is going to come. Yes, definitely. And you have spoken about Google. So
Okay.
I'm just curious, how was then coming into Google? Was it a culture shock? Was it a shock because you have never seen anything like that? And I've never been at Google. I have to actually say that. So I'm sure that lots of people are then wondering, how is life? How is really life at Google? Is it actually true that when you enter, they open up your mind and then something clicks and something changes, or how actually was it?
Oh my gosh. The day I got an offer letter from Google, I almost cried. I probably did shed a tear. For a couple of different reasons. One, um, it was really satisfying, gratifying to be a part of such a great company, right? The brand of Google is just enormous. But even more so, I realized and experienced how hard it was to get into a company like Google. Um, I think I had 20 interviews total over the span of maybe 3 or 4 different roles. Um, Being on the other side of things, I realized I was probably doing a good job. It just was a fit type of thing, and we really just needed to find where the best fit was within the company. But the statistics, the thousands of people that apply for roles at Google and don't get them. So at orientation, and yes, the sun did shine a little bit different in Mountain View. Joining Google the first day as a noogler, as we call it. And so um yes, I mean look, I call them amenities, the things that keep you satisfied. The environment, the ecosystem of Google is amazing, right? I don't think that the perks of such a company can be compared um, to any other place. But it's a massive place, and everyone is extremely smart, right? So it doesn't matter how smart I am. There were
Uh-huh.
some tables that within my first 30 days, I was like, wow, the imposter syndrome was through the roof, you know? Um, and are really trying to run up their learning curve, which I had done early in my career so many different times, as I mentioned, like so many different industries. This felt different, right? But eventually I figured out that I belonged there, but it took a little while.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I'm gonna quote one thing that you actually mentioned. I'm really curious how you can actually do that. You have mentored teams that improved productivity over 40%, which is incredible. It is massive. So I wanted to know, what is the secret of building a finance team where, I mean, finance, it is pretty strict. And sometimes maybe you will really feel that you're just crunching numbers. So how can you really motivate your finance team so that they can
Hmm.
achieve better results? And how can you be not only there to motivate them, but really to inspire them?
Yeah, great question. I think I lead with empathy, right? I understand as a leader, folks are looking to me to make decisions, be strategic. But if you don't put yourself in the seat of the people that work for you, how are you going to make decisions on their behalf, in my opinion? Right. And so I think with any efficiency that comes, I understood where the pain points were. What are the blockers? Right. Are we spending 80% of our time trying to manually create a report? or can we either adopt software, create dashboards, prioritize, and figure out ways to actually be better with our time and working smarter and not harder is what I constantly think of, because I remember when I was an analyst, wishing I had the ability to either fund a different way to do something or have the influence and impact to make a difference in that way. And now that I do, you take those learnings, you take that impact, and hopefully you have a managerial chain and an organization that supports change and is willing to invest in it if needed. You do have to have that connectivity, and really speak on behalf of the folks that you're looking to impact. So I think that anytime we have found efficiencies, it's really stemmed through the connectivity of the people on the team doing the work that's being produced. And so it allows us, when you think through that lens, it not only affects us in finance, but it affects our stakeholders as well, right? It doesn't take us as long to be able to envision our SLAs improve, and we're able to have that connectivity, be a lot more flexible and adaptive to a highly, dynamic environment that we work in. So yeah, I think it just really starts with understanding the lay of the land, what your team is actually working on, how long it's taking them. And that's not a micro management type of approach, in my opinion. It's really a thoughtful, empathetic way to understand what everyone's doing and figure out a way to make things better.
Love it. I love it. And I love also the fact that from a finance leader of one of the major tech giants out there, you have spoken a lot of times about relationship, about being personal, about empathy, which is great to actually hear, because again, everyone out there that are just thinking about how AI is going to change how I do work or which are the things that I'm going to do, but hearing from someone like you, again, from a tech giant that is just talking, really focusing on empathy, on being personal, on relationship building, it is really a
And
great way to, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I don't
But
know about you, but AI is
yeah,
making my life a lot easier, and not harder. And so I think that everyone needs to, just lean into the concept of let's utilize this technology. I mean, people probably thought the internet was going to take over our jobs as well, right? And we survived that, and we will use AI in a way that benefits everyone, I think, in the future, and it won't be as doomsday as some people make it out to be.
yeah, if you use it in a smart way, it can give you superpowers. If you are
Yes.
thinking that it is going to do things for you, and well, maybe that's not the smart way, you actually have to actually
hmm
use it so that you can be
hmm
smarter in what you are
hmm
doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so we are always closing the podcast with one question, and you have gone through a tremendous career so far. But if you would to actually change one thing that you have done, or one decision that you made that you would have changed, which one would it be?
I think, great question. There are a lot of decisions that I made that, you kind of wish you could take back, but it was the decision that I didn't make, probably, that I would lean on the most. And that was, even to this day, I do wonder what, my career path would have been if I went to business school. Um, especially during the time when I was really considering it, right? The economy was going down. I was a very young homeowner, and I was really focused on making ends meet as opposed to like being big picture and thinking like, okay, yes, I could go to business school. And obviously a lot of folks I went to school with or around me were going to business school. And I do sometimes wonder what that path would have been like with the network that I could have created back then, because I'm massive on a network. And again, it goes back to the relationship piece, but your network makes you feel stronger in any environment. And I do wonder where life would have taken me if I ended up going to, a top business school and seeing what happened after that. But, at the end of the day, I do think that things worked out. It may have just taken me a little while longer. But that is something that always is like in the back of my head.
Well, but it seems that things turn out pretty well. So,
Yes.
but
Yes, I'm
but
not I'm not
no,
I'm not I'm not complaining by any means, but you'll have those things where you're just like, what if? That's one of them.
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. But so,
Yeah.
Lamont, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your insights with us today. It has been a real pleasure to actually have you on Behind Numbers.
No, I appreciate the invite. Absolutely. It was a great conversation.
Fantastic. And to everyone else listening, thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to follow Behind Numbers for more stories from the leaders shaping the future of business and finance. I'm Alessandro Cozzi. See you next time.